this on. Thank you. So I hope you remember last class we spoke of the root pressure, which is nothing but the hydrostatic pressure built up due to the process of osmosis, and because of which the water keeps flowing towards the xylem and then upward through the xylem. And this was specifically with respect to the root hair cell, then to epidermis, then to cortex, then the pericycle, the endodermis, and then the pericycle, and then it enters into the xylem tissue, and then it keeps conducting upward, and more water keeps coming inside through the osmosis, and more water keeps going up through the xylem. So that was the whole process or the water movement through the root, and of course that process happens because of the root pressure. So that is what we had seen in the last few classes. Now, the next process which happens because of the root pressure is called guttation, not directly as a result of root pressure, but yeah, of course, water is getting absorbed, and because of that, guttation occurs. Now, what is guttation? Now, just to give you a brief idea, so we know transpiration is loss of water in the water vapor form through the leaf, through the surface of the leaf, right? And guttation is the process of secretion of water droplet from the pores at the margin of the leaf. So just to show you, and you will get clarity of this, what guttation is. So if you look at this green leaf structure, and if you look at the drops, they are being formed at the margin and not on the surface. Yeah, all these drops that are being formed, they are on the margin of the leaves or the edge of the leaf, and it is at the end of these veins. Yeah, there are even the smaller veins which are branches, and at the end of these veins these droplets are being formed, and the removal of water in this water droplet form through the leaf or the through margin of the leaf is called as guttation. So if we have to define it, it is the process of secretion of water droplets like from the pores of some vascular plants like grass, right? You can forget this some vascular plant, but it is the process of secretion of water droplet from the pores of the veins or the end of the at the margin of the leaves. Now, another difference, like I mentioned, is guttation happens through the margin, transpiration happens through the surface of the leaf. Guttation happens in the form of water droplets, while transpiration happens in the form of evaporated water. Yeah, that is the water vapor. So there are these drastic differences in guttation as well as transpiration. So guttation is often confused with the dew droplets. That is again another phenomena which you see due to the higher moisture or condensation of the moisture from the atmosphere on the plant surface or the leaf surface, right? So guttation cannot be confused with that dew droplets. The reason being, guttation is very specific to the margin of the leaves, while the dew droplets, whenever you observe them, they are on the surface of the leaves. So that way, there is a drastic difference between these two. And transpiration, you may not even see, right? Transpiration, because it's in water vapor form, you may not really see. And of course, the amount is tiny compared to guttation, that it is coming out from one single leaf. So transpiration, you may not see. Dew droplets, you will see, but that will be on the surface and it cannot be guttation. And guttation specifically is from the at the end of these veins, you will have water droplets. So the liquid of guttation comprises of variety of inorganic as well as organic compounds. Now you can simply imagine, it is the connection in connection with the xylem tissue. Xylem is responsible for conducting certain molecules. Now whenever that is in excess and the water is in excess, it will be pushed out of this through this margin of the veins or the margin at the leaves, and that way it will also create a white crust remaining on the leaf surface. Leaf surface as in usually next to the edge or margin of the leaf, there will be white crust of these organic and inorganic molecules, because they will keep on precipitating there and water will keep going out from the at the end of the veins. So that way, in only in some of the cases, but not always, you will see this white crust due to the inorganic and organic compounds being pushed out. And that is specifically because of this potassium and sugar molecule being present in the plant. Now, under and this, why does the guttation happens? That is very specific reason as well. Under the condition where the soil is flooded. Now, let's say this content of the water due to rains or various other reason is high. So soil is flooded with rainwater, and the humidity in the environment or the atmosphere is also high, right? Or either of these cases, whenever there is higher soil content, higher water content in the soil or higher humidity in the atmosphere, due to these reasons, the plant root system will absorb excess water. Excess water as in roots will keep on absorbing. They don't stop. Like I had said it earlier also, it doesn't come in chunk of water. Okay, let's absorb 1 liter and then wait for 1 hour or 1 day. That doesn't happen. It keeps on absorbing continuously. So there will be excess of water. Now soil is already high in water or high content of the water. Humidity is also high. So there the transpiration will be less. That means the water loss by transpiration will be less. And that way, the excess of water that is still getting absorbed by the root has to go out of the plant. That is when guttation happens. So that is the excess water. Yeah. So that way, again, guttation and transpiration will be different. Guttation will keep on happening on regular basis. Sorry, transpiration will keep on happening on regular basis depending on the temperature. Higher the temperature, higher the transpiration. That way, in terms of guttation, guttation will happen when higher water content is there, either in the soil or in the atmosphere, and the water will keep getting absorbed. Again, in case of guttation, if lower the temperature, that is lower the temperature, again humidity can be high and the excess water is still getting absorbed. In that case, guttation will starts happening because evaporation or the transpiration will be less, so guttation will be more. Now, as a result of this excess water still getting absorbed, hydrostatic pressure will be built up in the roots. Again, the same root pressure, it will force water to move upwards, and hence water involving other soluble component. Now, this is forceful movement of water. Like normally also there is root pressure, but this is even more forceful movement of water movement, and that way water involving the other soluble cell components will be forced out of xylem, and that is present in the epitheme tissue. Epitheme tissue is nothing but a kind of tissue which is present at the margin, and these are usually loosely arranged cells at the dead end of the veins. Now, dead end does not literally mean dead. Like on the skin also, we have some dead cells which keep shredding off, right? It is something similar. So this epitheme tissue, it is present at the margin of the leaves, and these are loosely arranged cells. So because they are loosely arranged, there is quite a lot of gap between the cells. So from this margin of the at the end of these veins, there will be quite a lot of pores which are specifically called as hydathodes. So hydathodes, these are the structures which are present at the end of the veins through which guttation happens. Yeah, and that is a part of your epitheme tissue, which are loosely arranged dead cells. Now, as a result, the stomata which are filled with water is forced out by the root pressure, right? Some of the amount can still go out through the stomata, but more water or more liquid is forced out of the pores where the stomata offer no resistance, right? So if the stomata are not offering more resistance, then the water can go out through the stomata. Otherwise, it will again keep on going through the guttation process. And the transfer cells can also help in the retrieval of the minerals from xylem elements and secrete it along the along with the water. Now, what this statement is referring to, if the water pressure is higher or the root pressure is higher, the upward movement of the water is also forceful, and because of that, the lateral movement of the minerals can also happen to a great extent, and again that way more water is being pushed out through the plant. So that is all about the guttation. And just to revise this part, epithelium tissue present at the margin of the leaves, which are loosely arranged cells, and these pores of the epithelial tissues, they are specifically called as hydathodes. So usually the question comes, transpiration happens through dash, guttation happens through dash, then there you have to fill in the blanks or whatever is the question. Transpiration happens through stomata and guttation happens through hydathode. That is a very clear indication. Okay, so that's it about guttation here. This diagram, I will not speak of it as of now because it is more related to the transpiration. So we will see this in the transpiration chapter itself. As of now, I am skipping this part. Okay, are there any questions in the guttation? Anyone? I hope you have got clarity on the differences between transpiration and guttation. That is most important part. Okay, so if there are no questions, then we can move forward. Now, whatever steps or whatever experiments will be required to prove all these processes. Now, the first and simplest thing we had seen in this chapter was the roots absorb the water. How they absorb, what is the mechanism, that we saw much later. But the first parameter or first statement that we saw was roots absorbing water. Now, if you have to prove this fact experimentally, this is what you see on your screen. So the aim is to show that roots will absorb the water. And you can also do these experiments at your home. These are very simplistic setup. You don't really need anything else. Then the procedure, what you do is you take two test tube A and B. Now here it is labeled as container P and Q, but you can ignore it. You can say A and B. And in test tube A, what you have is young leaf with intact root. So that is young sapling, you can say, or young plant that you have, which can be fitted inside the test tube, which is filled with water. And both of these surfaces, they are covered with oil. Now, can someone tell me why? What will be the purpose of the oil being there? Anyone?
So that if the water is absorbed by the roots, we'll know that the level of oil decreases.
Okay, that is one for sure. Anyone else? Any additional point?
Like evaporation of water.
Sorry, Neeraj, say it again.
Get evaporated naturally.
Your voice is breaking, Neeraj, for me. Deeta, you want to say?
Yeah, so to prevent water evaporation.
Yes. So, of course, the major purpose of adding oil to this test tube is to avoid the water evaporation. Now, why am I saying this? Now, let's say I am staying in a cold country, or let's say I'm in the north of India, and you are in a very tropical region where the temperature is 35 to 40 degrees. By regular environmental temperature, that is the room temperature, there will be some water loss, right? To avoid that water loss, which will still be calculated as the water absorbed by root otherwise. So to avoid that particular fact, we add oil layer on the top surface so that it serves two purposes. That is, it will stop the evaporation, and secondly, it will also gives us a kind of marking where we can look at to see the water level is reducing or not, right? So now let's say, for example, in container A, we have this water with oil layer on top and intact plant with the root system. Most important thing you should mention here is the intact root. Yeah. And in the second case, what you have is nothing but just minus this plant. You have a test tube, water, same level of water and same amount of oil on the top of the water surface. Now, what do you think is the use of this particular empty setup? Why do you think we need this? Or is it required at all? Let me start from there. If it is required, then why is it required? Again, someone.
When we compare with
Yeah, why do we have to compare?
to compare it container thing, like
Okay,
to prove that the water is absorbed.
okay.
I'm not sure.
Anusha,
So it is the control.
okay, what does the control serve as? What is
Um,
the purpose?
we can tell the difference between uh, and we can like basically we can show what exactly happened in the experiment, like what change did it make.
Right. So usually in all the biological experiments, we always have a control, which is most important parameter. Now, I will give you quite a few examples of this control being used. So for this particular experiment, to make sure that the water loss is only because of the absorption by the roots and nothing else, we need to have this control. Now, how? Let's say in this water level will reduce because of the water absorption through roots and it will go up, right? And let's say here also there is some water loss. Let's say here there is 5 ml of water loss in the container A or the first test tube, and in the second one there is only 1 ml of water loss. Now this 1 ml of water loss is because of something else. Can be environmental factors, can be due to the temperature conditions, can be due to any other reason. So if that is the case, that means the water loss in this or the water absorption by this plant in this container is 5 minus 1, that is 4 ml. Because in this container also we would assume whatever happened to this, let's say because of the temperature, water loss was 1 ml. So here also that same amount of water should be lost by the temperature, because both the experiments, they are done in the same conditions. So if 1 ml is being lost in second container, in the first container also it should be lost 1 ml. That is assumed. And the total water absorption by the root will be 4 ml. So that way we use control to check whatever experimental factor we have is only one variable and there are no other variables or no other conditions which are causing the water loss in the first container. So this is with respect to the experiment. Now, for example, let's say whenever we go for this RT-PCR test. Okay, Deeta, you want to ask question? And
Yeah, sir. So suppose in container B, the water doesn't decrease. So A may it can like decrease, right? Or
correct. So if in container B or the second container, there is no water loss at all, then whatever water loss is in the first container, that is solely because of the root absorption.
okay, sir.
Anusha, you also have your hand raised. Do you have question? Or maybe it's from past. Okay, I don't think so. Fine. So yeah, so that is the use of control in this experiment. And I was giving an example of RT-PCR test. Let's say in the corona times we are doing RT-PCR test. There we usually get sometimes negative or the false negative or false positive results. So in that case, what is usually done is we have a sample and then we do RT-PCR, and we have no sample and then we do RT-PCR. So whatever we have added to the chemicals to conduct that RT-PCR reaction, we do the same reaction just without the sample. And then we check if at all we are getting a false positive or false negative, any of those results. That way we have control there also. Another example of this could be, let's say when we inject, like when we do animal experiment, we inject, let's say, I want to see the effect of paracetamol on the mice to reduce the temperature or whatever is the effect. Now, what I will do is I will have 6 mice. I will inject paracetamol in certain amount, and I will have a control set where I will not inject the paracetamol, but I will inject just plain water as in sterile water, which will not have any microorganism, but just normal water. Now, here the control will be due to the injection itself, not of the paracetamol, but by pricking of that injection. Does it cause any changes in the mice? Because it might have effect in terms of increase or decrease in temperature, because my injection is getting pricked into the mice skin. So due to that, if there are any effects, that will be nullified by having that control set. And also the amount of volume, like let's say we inject 1 ml, which is quite a lot actually, let's say 0.5 ml. If I inject 0.5 ml of water in the control set and 0.5 ml of paracetamol solution in the what we say, the experimental setup itself, there we can check the effect are solely and solely because of the paracetamol and not because of any other factor. So that way in biological setup, we always do a control setup, and there is big role of control experiment being done. You might say, oh, there is no sample, what is the use of having it? But no, that is not the case. We have quite a lot to take from this control setup. Okay, and then in observation, what you will see at the end of 3 to 4 hours is some water will be absorbed by the roots in the container A, and that way you will have reduced water level. So the oil level will come down along with the water level will also be reduced, of course. And in container B, there will be no change in water level. That is the observation. And then in conclusion, obviously, whatever was the aim, we have proved it, that is water is absorbed by the roots. I hope this part is clear to everyone. If there are any questions, you can ask. And let me also emphasize the fact that these kind of diagrams, they are usually asked in the question. So usually what we have is different setups being shown in the diagram, and what we call as diagram based question. They will ask you, why is ideally what you should do in, like what I should have done here is I should have shown the setup of the experiment, and at the end of the experiment how it will show. That is again another test tube, that is container A with reduced water level and container B with the same water level. That will be, that should have been shown ideally, but I guess this is okay, you can understand that part for sure. So many questions can be asked, like what is the role of the oil, or why do we need intact roots, or like what will be the difference between these two containers, or what is the need of the second container? Can you take any plant here instead of balsam plant that is being mentioned? So of course you can take any other plant apart from balsam which has intact roots. So that way quite many questions can be asked.
So
Yes.
the plant has to be aqueous, right?
Plant has to be?
Aqueous, right? Like, should be aquatic plant, right?
Not necessary.
Okay.
Regular soil plants, they will also absorb water. It need not only be aqueous plant.
Okay.
I feel aqueous plant, they have less water absorption rate compared to the soil plant.
Right, right. But like, don't they like need soil?
No.
Oh.
So you can see it, no, sometimes if you have observed that particular fact at your home itself, when someone gives you a flower bouquet or something, what you do is you put it in a put it in a water what do you say, container.
Right, we do that, but then the flowers die very quickly, right?
But if you next time whenever you get it, you try it, you keep half of the flowers just without water and half you keep with water, and you
Okay.
see the difference. You will simply get the answer for that. Of
So
course, take
when you, yeah, when you like put it with in water, just water, like why do the plants die? Like, is it because less chlorophyll, less sunlight, or something like? Or,
sorry, I didn't get the question.
so like when you put a plant in water, okay. So like you said, so why do they like die after some time? Like,
Because they don't get minerals or phosphate, nitrate, all of those things which are very, very essential. This is just an experimental setup which is done
right.
for 3 to 4 hours or maximum 6 to 12 hours, right?
Yeah.
That much plants can sustain, and that is when the starch granules which are present in the plant, they help. The moment starch is diminished, then of course plant will start drooping down leaves and it will slowly start dying because it cannot perform more photosynthesis.
Okay.
So that way it works.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is the first experiment to show that root absorb the water. Now the second experiment is to prove that there is upward conduction of water. Now I have not written in the same manner, like you have to write aim, procedure, observation and inference. Yeah, I assume you will be able to easily figure out what is the aim. Aim is to show that the water conduction happens in upward direction, right? Procedure or the materials that you can see here, it's simple. You take a beaker, you in that beaker you add water, and in that water you add eosin solution. Yeah, eosin is one of the water soluble dyes. Yeah, I assume you know what dye is. It's just a simple colorful chemical which can be either water soluble or insoluble. In this case it is very much water soluble. So you can see the kind of orange colored water here. Now, because of the, of course, the water is getting absorbed by the roots, it will absorb the eosin as well, because water, eosin is water soluble. So along with the water, eosin will also go along with the xylem tissue and it will go up to the leaves. So at the end of the experiment, like after a period of time, the transverse section of the root, stem and leaves, they are taken and they are observed under microscope. What you will see is all the xylem vessels, they will appear distinct red compared to the rest of the tissue. That is because eosin is present in there. So obviously they will get stained in that color, that is red color, and they will appear red. And also these leaves, they will turn red. That is direct indication that whatever water was present in the beaker has been absorbed by the root and it has moved upward up to the leaves, and that is when you will see this may or may not be so prominent as it is shown in the diagram, but you will surely see some coloration or change in coloration of the leaf. From green it will show you a little kind of reddish tinge in the leaf, because this is like a animated or graphic diagram. They have shown it like extremely orange or reddish in color, but that may not be the case in reality. But surely you see a certain color change in the leaves. And of course in the section, that is the transverse section of the root, of the stem and of the leaf, you will surely see only xylem being colored, and the rest, all the other tissues, they will not have colored so far. Of course, again, if you keep it for longer duration, like apart from 3 to 4 hours, if you keep it, let's say, for 24 hours to 48 hours, and more water will be absorbed, and this red color water or eosin solution will reach to each and every part of the cell, or rather most of the cells within the leaf, within the root and within the stem. And that way even the other parts will have a little reddish or little orangish color otherwise, but that is only after long duration of uh, like keeping that plant in the eosin solution. For short duration, you will only see xylem because that is the only medium of transport of the water. Again, here there are quite a few questions being asked. Here you don't need a control specifically because you just want to show the water is moving upward, right? So there you may not have any control as such. You have already proven that water moves or gets absorbed by the roots and moves upward, right? And here to show that upward movement specifically, you have added a eosin dye which is getting moved upward. Okay, instead of eosin, you can also use any other water soluble dyes. Eosin is just an example here. So for example, there is crystal violet or so. These are like different colored dyes, green colored or blue colored or yellow colored dyes, which are water soluble, which can also be used. This is specifically used keeping it in mind that the contrast between the color. That's what I feel. But otherwise, you can also use other water soluble dyes, which will show ultimately the xylem coloration based on which dye has been used for the experiment. Okay, again, any question, anyone here? If there are any questions. Okay, so I assume there are no questions. The next set of experiment is conduction of water through xylem. Now again, this is again to prove that water is moving through xylem and not through phloem or not through any other tissue. Of course, using the previous experiment, this experiment, you can prove that the water moves through xylem only because xylem is the first one to get red color because this eosin solution is moving through the xylem upward. So that will obviously get stained, but it will also stain some other tissues which are in the nearby vicinity. That is because the radial conduction of water also keeps on happening slowly, right? Though it may not reach to the farther cells from the xylem, but surely nearby vicinity of the cells can have that radial conduction of the water. So now to prove that it is solely and solely through xylem that the water moves upward, a specific set of experiment is done. Now this involves like we have to take two leafy shoots. Now leafy shoot here, they do not have any root system as such. This is only the shoot part like shown in this diagram. It's only a branch or a twig of a plant that you take without any roots. And like here they have specifically mentioned balsam plant, but again you can take any other plant as well. Of course not the those succulent type of plants or bryophytes or fern, FERN, that fern type of plants. You cannot use those because they have different like systems altogether in terms of they may not need much water and so on. So that way we don't use any of those plants, but regular plants like balsam is the common plant that is being used for this experiment because the water absorption rate is quite high in short span of time. So, and they have been cut under water to prevent any air bubble. Now, what do you think will be the purpose of this? So these plants, when we are cutting the shoot, it has to be cut under the water to prevent any air bubble. Why it has to happen like this only? Why we cannot cut it outside? Can anyone say it? Think it should come.
What do you do with outer fingers?
Yeah.
Like the plant.
Yeah.
Yeah, because of the skin now. Like there are like a lot of layers of
Not really. Kimaya.
Yes, sir.
Would you like to answer the question?
I'm not sure of the answers.
Okay. Shantanu.
Yes, sir.
Answer, please.
Can you repeat the question so that I can get some clarity?
So I asked, in this experiment, there are leafy shoots which are cut. That is, only a twig or a branch is taken, and they are cut under water to prevent any air bubbles. Why this has to be cut under water to prevent the air bubble?
Yeah, because there will be some water released, right?
Some water.
Released.
What does that mean?
So basically, this won't go into the xylem
So if the
and
air,
interfere with the system.
yeah, so if the air bubble goes inside, they will interfere with the water conduction, right? So to avoid that particular fact, the water or the the shoot is cut under the water, right? So I assume you have understood this reason why it has to be cut under water only, just to avoid any air bubbles going from one side. See, the water movement through the twig or through the branch will keep on happening, irrespective of whether it is cut or intact. Irrespective of that, if it is cut, it will happen slowly, but if it is intact, it will happen at normal rate. And if it is happening, and if you cut the branch, then obviously the water movement is happening upward, and then the air will be sucked in, right? Otherwise, if you are not cutting it in water, if you are cutting in water, then the regular water that is present in these beaker or whatever, wherever you are cutting that branch, it will keep getting inside. So that way there will be no air bubbles being trapped in the xylem tissue. And if otherwise, if they are trapped, then the water movement may not happen smoothly. So that way, this has to be cut under water. Then the lower ends of these twigs or the shoot, they are kept dipped in water. Remove the 3 centimeter long outer ring. Now 3 centimeter is kept in the mind that usually if the diameter is, let's say, 4 to 5 centimeter of the twig, that in that case 3 centimeter of the cut is given. How that is done is shown in this diagram. Let's say this is the complete diameter. So from the outer diameter, the outer circumference to the inner side or at the center, you cut 3 centimeter along the radius. You cut the 3 centimeter and you leave the intact portion at the center, which is nothing but your xylem tissue. So that has to be kept as it is. So yeah, remove the 3 centimeter. Again, like I said, 3 centimeter is not the usual case. If your twig diameter is smaller, you change the cutting accordingly, and you usually get that idea. So if you have at all, if you have seen the grass at all, you will see at the center of the grass stem, there is a whitish tissue, and on the outermost parts, there is greenish tissue. Can be faint greenish or so on, but at the center is distinct white and outer side is distinct greenish. That way, the central portion you can easily figure out which is the xylem tissue and which is not the xylem tissue. So you can always cut up to that one. And keeping the central part intact. And this particular fact is called as girdling. Girdling as in you create a girdle, that is also called as ringing experiment otherwise. Ringing as in the creating that ring-like structure. So that is ringing experiment, or it is also called as girdling. Girdle again refers to the circular area, that is the circumference. So that is girdling or ringing experiment. Now in the other beaker, so in this was the situation in the first one. In the other one, the equal length of the central part is removed by incising the stem in the full thickness. Now what does this mean? And keeping the peripheral part intact. So what in the second case you do is you make a vertical cut, right, through this stem. That is what we say across the stem diameter. You make a vertical cut like you can see here, and then you chop off only the central part. So whatever is remaining at the center, you chop off that part and you keep this outermost tissue intact. Now imagine this in 3 dimensions. This is like a pipe or a pipe filled completely, and that at the center you cut off, vertical cut you make, then at the center you cut the xylem tissue, so you are actually breaking off, and you remove 1 centimeter part. So you make a cut here like this at the center, and you make a little lower cut again at the center, and you remove the central 1 centimeter piece, so that the xylem is completely broken and not just cut. Yeah, so a piece of xylem you are taking it out. Yeah, if I have to show you here, what you are doing is you are cutting it here on the top and you are cutting it little at the bottom, so the xylem is piece is taken out. So what you have is only intact phloem and the other tissue, and the xylem is totally off or cut from the its connection. So that is the second beaker situation, and now the shoots are then fixed to a stand and then are allowed to remain there for about 2 days with their lower ends immersed in water always. Yeah, that is important situation, kept for 2 days. The leaves in the first week will remain turgid and stands out almost normally, but those in the second wing, they will get wilted and they will droop down. Now again, in this case, what is happening is water is getting absorbed through the xylem. Upward movement will keep happening. So the ultimately these leaves cell, they will have turgidity. That means they will be standing out. That will they will be intact in their own position because of the xylem is intact. Here, the xylem is not intact. So the water conduction, the upward water conduction is also broken, and the leaves will not get enough water. So they will ultimately become flaccid cells, and ultimately it will cause the wilting of the leaves in this second beaker series. So that is the one of the observation, and this way the experiment proves that water is conducted upward in plant through the deeper part, that is the xylem tissue. So this experiment will ultimately prove that water is moving through the xylem and not through the any other part. Of course, water will keep moving through any other parts also, but the upward conduction of water from beaker is not happening in the second case, which is happening in the first case. Again, any question here? Anyone?
So I have one. I got the theoretical part, but the cutting the xylem part I didn't understand. So how do you like cut the the figure on the left, is that after the cutting or is it before the cutting?
This one?
Yeah.
It's after the.
Oh, so on the right you remove the outer layer of it basically.
Yes.
So but still the xylem is intact, right?
Yes, correct.
So you don't cut the xylem at all. Like you can see it, right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. But you said that we cut it completely. There's no contact. You said that, right?
I said that for this case.
Oh, so, okay.
And I just showed you, like, if this is the xylem inside here, you chop off 1 centimeter piece from the center here.
Okay. Now I got it. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Any question? Okay. So if there are no questions, then I will stop here for today. In the next class, we will look at the second, like there are quite a few experiments that we are yet to look at. So we'll go through them. Yeah. As of now, we will stop here.